Hey there! Welcome to Product Marketing Maestros, Tales from the Front Lines. I'm your host, Nitin Karthik. As Director of Product Marketing and a top product marketing voice, I've always found that real world case studies are the true litmus test for the effectiveness of any product marketing strategy. And that is why on this show, we dive into the minds of industry titans as well as rising stars, unpacking their expertise in action packed episodes that showcase the power of product marketing through real world case studies. And today, my friends, we are joined by product marketing maestro Michele Nieberding, who is Director of Product Marketing at Meta Router in Virginia. Michelle is a top 100 product marketing mentor, a product marketing alliance ambassador, and she mentors several up and coming female leaders from industries including tech and hospitality. Michelle is passionately curious about marketing and she geeks out over all things data and go to market strategy. When she isn't doing product marketing, you'll find her at punk rock concerts, on the golf course, or even out hiking with her rescue beagle or hound named Remy. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Michelle Niederbring. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful, Michelle. Okay, so Michelle, today we will give the audience a situation from your experience. And Michelle, we'll use the ABC framework. So we'll talk about the antecedents or the prior challenges. We'll talk about the behaviors or some of the actions that you took. And we'll talk about the conclusion, how things played out. So with that, Michelle, pick a situation from your experience and tell us what were the antecedents? What were the prior challenges?
Absolutely. So I think before I get too deep into that, I do want to level set a little bit because I know for the audience here, product marketing is defined so differently at every single organization. So for me personally, I've worked at big companies, 8,000 people plus to now a 30-person startup. And I've also worked under product, so the CPO or marketing CMO. And there is a lot of interesting dynamics that happen depending again on, the size of your team, who you're under, the size of your company, all these things, right? So when we're thinking about measuring success as a product marketer, you have to think about what that alignment looks like within your team and within your department, but also leveling up to more executive level business goals, right? So for instance, if you're on the marketing side, you might focus more on potentially MQLs or user acquisitions or things that are a little more ambiguous like brand awareness. And if you're on the product side, you might prioritize things like user engagement, the adoption of the product, feature utilization, things like that. So because it's defined so differently, you need to think within those levels and start there. For me specifically, I have somewhat recently been in a situation where product marketing was focused on driving MQLs. The challenge there is as product marketers, I think we really need to focus on that strategy and the storytelling and really strategic thinking of how we bring things to market, how we talk about our products, where when you focus more on MQLs, it's really specific to execution, right? Like what activities are you doing to drive your messaging and drive those leads, right? And not necessarily every product marketer's strength. And we'll talk about kind of behaviors that were taken and actions that happen. But honestly, like my personal opinion, having product marketing focusing specifically on MQLs can actually backfire and put you more in the execution mind versus thinking more strategically. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, and that's really helpful, Michelle, because I think a lot of people in the audience may be focused on all these tactics and getting the MQLs and these numbers. So I'm really glad that you emphasize that. So tell us, given these challenges, what were some of the actions that you took to try and get through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things to say here is, of course, one of the strengths of a product marketer should be cross-team collaboration. I say that because if you are fortunate enough to have a growth marketer or demand gen person on your team, that is typically their strength, right? They are the kings and queens of making that content into formats, into, form fills, whatever kind of packaging needs to happen to get those leads. Where typically as a product marketer, we're really good at building those stories, like helping create those deliverables. But once we've done that, kind of handing it off to a team who can really optimize for leads. So I say that because thinking about strategic cross-team collaboration, once you kind of build this, I think of it as a gift for your growth or demand gen friends, that's awesome. In a startup world, for me, I'm a solo product marketer. We have two people on the marketing team. It's a little bit of balancing both. And it's interesting because I'm still having to drive those MQLs and thinking a little more, maybe, again, executionally focused to do that. So within that kind of world, right, if you're thinking in that way, some things to think in mind in terms of behavior so that you're focused on the right, just right numbers, right statistics, right? What should you actually measure your success on, which can be really, really tricky. The first thing I would say, absolutely focus. Like, don't drown in metrics. Think of one specific KPI that you can truly own, that you really have influence over, right? And typically MQLs isn't necessarily that in the product marketing world. Two, like I mentioned, is it actually actionable? How can you specifically influence this metric, knowing exactly how you're doing this and how you're contributing to that single kind of North Star metric is really important, so that you can give that feedback to leadership and say, hey, my role is impacting this metric in this way, being really clear on what that means so you can communicate that effectively and show, the progress that you're making as a product marketer. Three, I would say alignment, 100%, making sure that not only are you aligned within your department, but that executive level goal, if there is a really key kind of top of, the organization goal, revenue, for example, whatever it might, retention's really, really important right now, right? How is that certain KPI then contributing to that executive level goal, so that you can kind of move upstream and really showcase the work that you're doing and the impact you're having on the broader organization. I would say also clarity. Everyone should know what good looks like. Like, what does success look like? Which, again, in product marketing, I feel like that can get lost in the shuffle. Being able to understand exactly what you're doing and how it impacts, and relaying that to other teams, to leadership, can be really tricky. So knowing what you're working towards, what success looks like, and how you are getting there, how your work is contributing to that, is really, really important. And I would say something I've seen work better than MQLs, for example, as a product marketer, if you're thinking, what is that gold KPI? And again, it depends. But I would say one that I've seen work really well to drive business value versus MQLs is active users. So I like active users specifically as kind of your North Star, because not only do you have to think about the journey to get them there, so it's from prospect to customer, right? So revenue, of course. But then, of course, that retention piece too. It's one thing to get your customers in the tool. It's another to keep them going, right? To keep them engaged, keep them interactive, and then adopt more of what's going on. That's how you become stickier. That's how you create, bigger lifetime value. So that, as a key metric that product marketers can own, in my experience, is a really, really good one.
Yeah, I think a lot of our audience can relate to that, because sometimes there isn't clarity, there isn't alignment, and there isn't focus, right? And some of the things that we do are not so actionable. So brilliant advice there. So maybe bring it home, Michelle. So in situations that you've been in and where you had these kinds of challenges, what is the conclusion? How have these situations played out for you?
Yeah. So I like to tell everyone to learn from my mistakes, right? Learn from things that I've seen, take that as wisdom, and how to push forward maybe more effectively. So I would say two things. One, what happened in this scenario? I kind of redefined what metric product marketing should be in charge of versus an MQL, which, again, for us at the time was active users, but it totally depends. But have that alignment, have that North Star, be really clear and focused on what that is. And then some like things to think about, warnings, if you will, to from the field, the warnings to think about what not to do when you're really focusing on what that metric should be. One, I would say people always look at what they can measure instead of what they should measure. So just because you can look at a bunch of different metrics in Salesforce and HubSpot, whatever, it can almost be overwhelming. And just because you can measure it doesn't mean you really should. So think about, what are those core numbers that actually drive impact, right? And that kind of goes to this idea too of like quantity versus quality of metrics. Now, I know as product marketers, we get excited if and when we have access to data, because that's not always the case, right? When you're thinking about what specifically to measure, it's not always the quantity that will get you there. Just because you have a lot of data on something, again, doesn't mean that that should be your primary focus. You can use it to inform things or help things, but again, North Star, one KPI to focus on, go there first. And then, of course, again, that executive level alignment. The more that you can explain how you're impacting that high level goal, again, maybe it's retention, maybe it's revenue, and clearly state what you're doing to drive that, is really important as well. So learn from my mistakes, keep those three things in mind, and you'll be a rock star.
Wow, brilliant advice right there. So wonderful. Michelle, thank you for sharing all those learnings and experiences. If people wanted to find out more about you, Michelle, where can they learn more?
Absolutely, yes. Please reach out on LinkedIn. Like you mentioned, I geek over anything data, go to market strategy, whatever it might be, and I'm here to help however I can. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. So thank you, Michelle. Folks, there you have it. Definitely reach out to Michelle for more great advice like this, and armed with that knowledge, onward and upward.